Shalom. All praise, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught us his truth through well and truth and in doctrine. Shalom to the elect out there. So getting into a lesson now. All right, just in transit, meditating on some things and thinking about how much this situation with Iran and Edom, because we keep saying Israel, but really that's Edom, Iran versus Edom. Okay, but we say it because that's what they're known as, because they're in the Holy Land. They're within the borders of Israel, our homeland, but really it's Edom. Okay, so it's the Persians versus Edom, specifically Amalek. Okay, and I saw one particular video where you had that dude Sneeko, which he's a Jake. His father, I believe, is Haitian, so that would make him a Levite. All right, and he did a video reacting to there was some, Edomites over there in Tel Aviv saying that they were going to go into their bunker and have basically a sodomite sex party, and they weren't worried about the missiles. They were just going to go freak off, just the most detestable shit you can imagine. And, Sneeko said, I'm not dying for this shit. I'm not dying for this. I don't want to die for this. And, basically Sneeko actually, it's funny because that dude that I showed in the last lesson of Rabbi Shmuley, the dude who has the dildo business with his daughter, Sneeko had like an argument, pretty heated argument. You could look it up on YouTube against that guy and really basically expose them, man, and Americans are not with, pouring all these billions of dollars and dying for Israel, man, because, it's clearly being exposed. All right. The elder big bro, the priest Shaman from the main camp, I was watching the video, or a lot of the videos he's been doing, he's been bringing out Luke 12:2. And that is, that nothing that is hid will not be uncovered. So what's being uncovered, Isaiah 47, the skirt is being lifted. And this whole situation is exposing how much the world is truly tired of, the chief of Edom. The chief of Edom is Amalek. And they're clearly running the show. They clearly run the world. Okay. And their job is, in the media, which they control, APAC, their political action funds, all right, PACs, political action committee or something like that. The biggest one is Israel, all right? And all the senators in Congress are bought and paid for. They run Hollywood, they run America, okay? Because remember, they were the ones that owned the slave ships. They've been here. It's not like sometimes the sentiment from people was that, they took over America. They've infiltrated. But the thing is, they have been here since the beginning. There's a book called the Ish Confederacy. It basically shows you how the biggest slave owners were all small hats. They were the ones who owned the slave ships. You could look into Aaron Lopez. So they've been the ones at the forefront of this from the beginning, from the jump. All right. And of course they have, Mossad agents and different people infiltrating honey traps, different things to compromise politicians, judges, Supreme Court justices, presidents. They can knock off presidents easy. They could have, I forget who mentioned it, but they said that basically they could have pulled Trump to the side and said, listen, you want you and your whole family to get taken out. If he doesn't do what the small hats want him to do. Okay, they want war with Iran. They've been going for that. Another exposure that's been coming out is Bibi talking about for years, for decades, seemingly that Iran has been trying to have a nuclear weapon. Iran has been trying to have a nuclear weapon. All right, but essentially that is, their nuclear is really for energy purposes mainly. Now, of course, they almost have to have a nuclear weapon to defend themselves, because Israel, if they didn't have any, if there was no nuclear weapons backing up Iran, which they don't really need to have one because Russia has them. Their allies, their biggest partners, all have them. Pakistan just said that if Israel uses a nuke on Tehran, or on Iran, period, that Pakistan would drop a nuke on Israel. So their allies all have nuclear power. But again, it's really as a deterrent, because if it wasn't for that, then they would most likely just obliterate Iran. Okay, but then again, they do want some of the natural resources, so they might use a tactical. There's been talks now of Trump, on the table right now is Trump using a tactical nuke. I forget the name, starts with an F, of that nuclear plant that they have in Iran. One of the main ones that they're really trying to take out. But the Persians, those Iranians, the real reason they have the nuclear, their nuclear enrichment is for energy purposes, and that would make them what? Oil independent, all right, or more independent, and that would also embolden the BRICS nations, which are all allied up with them. So it's really, that what Esau does is usually tied to resources and their control over these resources. All right. So, they want to be able to have regime change, so they can do what? So they can have a puppet up in there. All right. And there's been talks that, they can't make it too obvious, because if they just put somebody that's super westernized, it would look bad, So they will have to put somebody who's kind of like, he's like a religious leader, but not as extreme as the Ayatollah. So, in the last 24 to 48 hours, there's been talks of them taking out the Ayatollah, which he's like basically the Pope of the Muslim world. All right. Either that, or them using a tactical nuke, or it might be both. They already did decapitation strikes. It's not much more for them to take out the Ayatollah. But in all of this turmoil and all of this chaos, all right, what is being exposed more and more? That the world, not just Americans, the whole entire world, man, is sick and tired of you Amalekites, man. And there's a reason why, and everything that you've been doing has been exposed. It's being exposed that you are the most hated people. Okay. There's been talks of, how they got kicked out of all these different countries, and then they'll play the victim, but they won't explain why did they get kicked out of these countries. They got kicked out because they push lewdness and filth. The same thing that happens in America. And then when you say, well, you obviously, they won't even, they're such goddamn cowards that they won't even own the fact that they own everything. They won't even admit it. Oh, that's a theory. This is the most cowardly, wicked. See, that's a dangerous mixture. When you're not only wicked and you also have been given power, but you're also a coward. Okay, so they'll do anything. They're scrambling now to protect that fake image that they've been presenting to the world for all these decades, man, since 1948. Okay, which the elites, they set up the state of Israel. That's all getting exposed. The internet. So I could see them, something big is about to pop, and the winter, so-called summer solstice is happening. So they deal with all these dates and things and witchcraft, and they move according to these different dates. All right, so the summer solstice is now. All right, so summer officially begins, according to Esau's calendar and whatnot. But we know that they're going to use that in order to make a move soon, and whether that should be a major cyber attack, Black Swan event, Jacob's trouble is coming, man. All right, and we see that the world is teetering on the brink. There's that quote that keeps coming up, which also the elder priest Shaman mentioned, that there's There's years. I'm paraphrasing and forgive me, I forget it, but basically, there's years where um, nothing happens, and then there's weeks where years happen. You know, and we're in a time right now. We're in a time. This is the most important time in history, man. All right, and we're in a time where things that would take much longer amount of time, things is happening in a matter of weeks. You see, them hitting it. This is going to be a pivotal point. All right, when history, when it's looked back on the history of how these things came to be, this is going to be looked at as a pivotal point. That strike on Iran into leading into the Third World War. All right. I was watching Steve Bannon, which he's a close ally of Trump. I think it's a podcast called The War Room. That basically he was going into, you know, World War III is not coming. We're already seeing the lead up, just like what it was in World War II. All right. And what does the scripture say? The second woe is past and the third woe cometh quickly. So we know, because the Lord opened our mind to see it, and we are the hopeful prophets of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, that, the third woe is World War II, and the second woe is World War II, and the third woe coming is World War III. And in World War III, none of the participants are going to win. There is no victor of the participants. The victor is going to be Yahweh Shai, all right, which is the true name of the Son of the Most High. The one that they ignorantly call Christ, his real name is Yahweh Shai. He's going to be the true victor, man. All right, and his elect, okay, which are a part. They are members, joint heirs with him. They are members of his body. All right. But you have some, and I kind of played off of the phrase that they have called black fatigue, which, hey, we're tired of all of it. You wicked jakes, you're of your father, the devil. You're fulfilling the agendas of the small hats by, being whores and being murderers and glorifying wickedness. You're fulfilling everything they wanted you to do. So that way they could accuse you to the Father. All right. But you Edomites, now the light is really shining on you. All them distractions, the Diddy, everybody forgot about that bullshit. Now that World War III, because shit is about to get serious. All the games and the bullshit is about to be over with. So, people forgot about, that Diddy shit is yesterday's news. It might pop up here and there, but really nobody's checking for that now. All right. Because the trending topic right now is World War III, and we already seen it get set off to where this is going to lead to this is the dominoes falling. There was the lead into, and now it's happening. The dominoes are falling, leading into the chess pieces being lined up. All right, Russia, which is Gog, okay, which Chief Prince, all right, Ra'ash Shah, okay, so that means what? Chief Prince. So the Lord made it so plainly obvious in terms of these end time prophecies to where Russia even has a name that's reflective of what the scripture says. Okay, Gomer, which is Turkey, they're lined up, and they already said that they're not going to tolerate Israel going too far with Iran, and they're already taking it up. So this is going to lead into what? Hyperinflation. All right, the scripture speaks about a measure. Man, I'm paraphrasing it. I don't have it right in front of me. Forgive me. But basically, Revelation 6, where it goes into the famine. All right, where a day's wages is going to be, a loaf of bread is going to be a day's wages. That means in today's time, like you could figure if you're making decent money, $200 or maybe a little more, $200 a day, $250. That's how high the price of a loaf of bread is going to be, around that. All right, so these things are all coming together, and the culprit of who is the one that's always the main antagonist, always the one that's creating all of this drama, always the one that's killing all these people, man, bringing nothing but death. That's why Revelation, and going back to Revelation 6, it mentions the one that was given a great sword. All right. And who is that? Esau, Edom. And the chief of Esau is Amalek. So now we know that Edomites as a whole are the enemies of the nation of Israel. All right. But the low level Americans, Joe Six-Pack, Edomite, they don't really have power to do nothing. The ones that has the power is the elites. All right. Which is the small hat. And they're being exposed on a high level, man, on a super high level. Everybody's calling them out. Okay. If you're still with it, you look crazy. If you still support what those people in the land of Israel right now are doing, all right, under their leader, Bibi, which he's just a low level guy because they put the low level guys on the forefront. If he was anybody, you wouldn't even see him. But you know, they must have him. They definitely, I would say it's a very high likelihood they got him some compromising shit to where they could come and expose him. But that's why he's out on the forefront. All right. But those people over there, man, they're being exposed. All right. They are being exposed as not being the people of the Lord. Okay. So if you're still with it and you still support that, you look crazy at this point. Which guess what? From our apostles on down, the apostles of Great Millstone, the apostles of GMS, the men that taught us, the men that the Lord used to disseminate this truth. All right, the elders, the big brothers in the faith under them, all right, down to the babes, all right, and Yahweh Shai like myself, have been saying this. So now the world is catching up to the truth that the Lord already been gave us. So now you can see where they're going to be the backlash. The accuser of our brethren, all right, he's going to come with that accusation. This is the final boss of Edom, the final boss of the heathen nations, man. All right, so they're coming with that, all that anti-Sem legislation to stop anybody. They're already making it illegal in Israel. You getting in prison just for recording what's happening. You can't even be a journalist over there. They're being exposed so heavy, man. This is the most exposure I think this is definitely the most exposure they've ever dealt with. All right. Meanwhile, in Gaza, they said that the tanks took out a bunch of people that were just starving, looking for food in Gaza. So all of their crimes and their criminality and the bloodshed and their murderous, their genocidal tendencies are coming to the forefront. And this is what the Spirit of the Lord is doing, man. All right. Because the Lord been had it on us to expose these devils, man. Now that their horns are coming out, all right, everybody's looking and saying like, damn, what is the deal with them? Why is it that every controversy, every time is something horrible happening, they're at the center of it? Is that a coincidence? No, because they are the aggressor. They are the ones that are taking peace from the earth, man. Okay? They've given that sword. The Lord gave them military, they said they have air dominance over Iran. All right, but we're in the age where all you need is just one nuclear missile. All that air dominance ain't gonna mean shit. Okay, so the Lord is working, man. And the people, the inhabitants of the earth are sick and tired of this shit, man. I've heard people say, well, this must be, I forget who said it, one of these YouTube guys, Alternative News, he said, this is a nightmare. We must be living in a nightmare. Oh, because he was talking about the tactical nuke that potentially is being floated around, all right? And all these people that voted for Trump, that supported him gung-ho, are quiet now because he's a puppet too, man. You think that, you people are really stupid, man. I get why, you would go with Trump over Kamala. I understand that. But for you to really think that this guy was going to be the one to usher America into some golden age when the writing was already on the wall that this place is going down, you think that Trump was going to be able to prevent that? The small hats own him. Okay? The elites own him. Okay? Otherwise, he wouldn't even be allowed. He would have been, if he wasn't going along what they want, he would have got JFK'd a long time ago. That's just the straight facts of the matter, man. All right. So, hey, man, things are turning up. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai is really doing some mighty works right now. And all we could do is praise his holy name. All we could do is praise the names of Yahweh Ba Yahweh Shai, because the Lord is the one that's, he setteth up over at the basis of men. So he set up you devils, all right, over in the land of Israel, over here in America, abroad, wherever you at, ruling from Europe. He set you up. And now the great demise of Edomite rulership, Edomite supremacy is upon us, man. So they're going out bad, they're going out sad, they're going out pathetic. They're doing anything and scrambling to cover up themselves. And that's why they're going to come down with great wrath. And the major ones that they are looking to the silence is the prophets of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, man. They want this truth to stop because it's exposing them too much. All right, but keep bringing it out, Akim. Lord willing, the Spirit stay with us. We're going to keep exposing you devils, man, and keep bringing it out until the Lord, till the Lord determine that we should get up off these highways and hedges, man. All right, which could be any day now. So with that, all praise, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Echad Kodash. Hey, shalom to the next one.